Ole Miss baseball's hot start is continuing. We need to get Derek Vandygriff in here and find out what is going on.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Steven Willis, the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and we are going to talk a little bit of baseball today. It should be quite good. We're going to have Derek Vandygriff in just a second. Ole Miss is having a really hot start at the moment. They're 10-1. They're up to number 17 in D1 baseball. Everything seems to be going well. So we have one question for Derek. Is Ole Miss back, Derek?
Well, of course they're back. I mean, was there ever a doubt? I mean, over the 25 years of the Mike Bianco era, you think we were going to be down 3 years in a row? No chance. Mike has adjusted incredibly well after two subpar years by our standards, obviously. Mangrum really seems to be paying dividends with this pitching staff, seems to be the story of this team so far. Not just the starters who have been very, very good, but also we're starting to find some consistency and some dudes in that bullpen that can come in and get outs for us. Obviously early in the season, haven't started conference play yet. But one thing you've got to look at, though, this is a team that has played 4 top 25 teams up to this point, and they've won 3 of those games already, right? Dropping the one to Texas, beating Southern Miss, Arizona, Clemson, and Clemson's coming off of a sweep of South Carolina this past weekend. So that's starting to look better and better. Arizona's really playing well, beating Mississippi State. Hate that for them. I couldn't imagine losing to Arizona and Southern Miss in the same season. But that's just where they're at right now. But yeah, this team's really rolling right now. And one thing I like is these past 2 weekends, Eastern Kentucky, Wright State. The past 2 teams, you would have seen them drop 1 or 2 of those 6 games along the way, right? This team is taking control. They are scoring runs. They're keeping them off the scoreboard. More than anything, they're playing a lot better defensively. They're not giving them extra outs and extra opportunities to put pitchers in a bind. Overall, though, really great start to the season. Got one more non-con weekend, and then we get to start SEC play after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the bats, we'll start off with the bats. And normally we start with pitching. We'll start with bats today. Federico still hasn't struck out. He is turning into an excellent just contact hitter. Now I have to see him in SEC play to make sure it continues. But in non-conference this fall, he looks like a player that played at Mississippi State a couple of years ago, just always putting his bat on the ball and always hitting it hard. Yeah,
he's been incredible. Like you said, we'll wait till SEC play comes around. See if he can keep hitting over 500 when we get to conference play, right? But he's been incredible. Great to him. He's forced his way into the lineup. We talked about it a couple times leading up to this weekend that you're just going to have to get him in no matter what. And they're finding spots to get him in at left field, DH. And the most impressive thing is he just keeps leading off, right? I mean, he's at the top of the lineup. He's a table setter. Even when he doesn't get hit, he's walking a good bit too. So he's not going up there chasing pitches either. Putting together really quality at bats one way or another, hitting well over 500. Just super impressive for a switch hitting freshman at this level. And, he's, like I said, we got one more weekend to go, get to SEC play, get scouting reports out there, see what the best coaches and best pitchers in the country can come up with to try to get him out. But it's been one hell of a start so far for him.
Absolutely. And the one of the games this weekend, I forget which one, so bear with me. Ole Miss had an interesting lineup in the infield that actually they played Federico out in the outfield, but you had Owen Pano at second, Chang at short, and Luke Hill at third, and then you have Utamark first. Yeah, that feels like the infield pairing that's going to stick around this season.
Yeah, well, I think more than anything, it's a credit to Chang and him also forcing the coaching staff to get him in the lineup as well. Not because he's tearing the cover off ball. I think he's only got 1 hit so far this year, but his on-base percentage is over 500. He's doing all the small things, the sacrifice bunts, sacrifice flies. He's walking a ton, and more than anything, he is playing really, really solid defense up the middle. He's done it at short. He's done it at second when he's played there. So more than anything, I think it's getting him in the lineup, getting that glove in the lineup, and knowing when his spot does come up, even in the number 9 hole, that you're going to get a quality bat out of him. I do think it's noteworthy that happened on Saturday when Riley Maddox was on the mound, because that was always his go-to last year. He was going to pound the strike zone with some sinking fastball, stuff with some cut on it, and try to get the hitter to pound the ball into the ground. That's when you need a really good infield behind him. That way he can meet his potential. And I think that was a really good pairing, though, like you said, as far as the infield goes, with Hill, Chang, Pano, and Utamark over there at first for a ground ball pitcher. There was a little bit of a mix up there at one point. We had the dribbler to the first baseline, and Maddox came off, fielded it. Utamark was charging at the same time, and Pano didn't get over to cover the bag. And we ended up giving up a base runner right there. That was unfortunate. But again, that's a true freshman at second base, along with Utamark, a guy that hasn't played a ton of first base either. Really, Utamark needed to get back to the bag. Pano wasn't getting there no matter what. He needed to read that the pitcher was getting there. He needed to get back to first to cover it. But yeah, overall, a solid defensive lineup there in the infield there on Saturday. I just think you've got to keep Chang and Hill. Those two gloves right now are playing at another level, and that's kind of the thing with Luke Hill right now. You know, he called a lot of hell last year for all the errors at shortstop and moved him over second base last year, played a lot better there, and now he has really taken hold of the hot corner. He's been really, really good over there. Got a bad hop on Sunday, wasn't able to corral it. Outside of that, though, he's been flawless over there at third base. So we're really starting to find some consistency in the infield, it looks like.
And they're doing a decent job right now of the long ball. And one thing that is kind of making me impressed is Utamark. You're starting to see some long balls go out opposite field. It's not just a pull home run, which most everybody on that team can hit a pull home run. An opposite field home run, that's a little bit of a Tim Elko specialty. And it was kind of nice to see those oppo shots.
Yeah, it's actually, I heard on the broadcast, it was the first time in Utamark's career that he had hitting a home run in back-to-back games. And not only did he do it in back-to-back games, he did it in all 3 games this weekend. He's really swinging the bat well. They've done a really good job with him. You knew he had this light tower power. He can put it out of any ballpark from foul pole to foul pole if he gets a hold of it. It was just correcting a few things, mainly making sure he can see the ball well, right? He really struggled with sliders and basically anything with movement the first couple of years here on campus, which he was injured a lot too. I know the shoulder really bothered him last year. But look, he looks healthy, and not only is he hitting the long ball, he's stealing bases too. He's running, he's causing havoc on the base paths whenever he doesn't hit it out of the ballpark. He's just been a really solid all-around player. Really, it's what you expected out of Utamark when you read about all of the tools that he has, where he can run, field, and hit. For power as well. He's off to an incredible start. And look, we're going to need that to continue as we get into SEC play coming up in a couple of weeks.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. When we come back, we'll talk to Derek about Hunter Elliott and the starting pitching as a whole, because Ole Miss is pitching the heck out of the ball right now. But we'll talk about that when he comes back. But first, I do want to let you know about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to get products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with a helpful resource and the latest product information to help you get the job done right the first time. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM to start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. All right, let's go back to Dids about what's going on. All right, so we talked about the bats in the first segment. Hunter Elliott has started 3 games, hasn't given up a single run. He's got the best DR in the history of the school at this point. And he's got 3 starts to back it up. Ole Miss is pitching the heck out of the ball right now. That's one thing I noticed. That their pitching is very underrated, and it honestly, if we're just going to be honest about it, probably not a good look for Mike Bianco in delaying hiring a pitching coach until now.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, when you bring in a guy like Mangrum too, though, a guy that has as much experience as he does with these young pitchers, and I say young, I mean college age. These are veteran guys from a college standpoint, right? You've got Elliott and Maddox and Nichols that have been around for a while here in this program. They know how to pitch. But yeah, Elliott's been incredible. What I like to see this past weekend was out of both Elliott and Maddox, neither one of them had their best stuff. I'm sure they would both tell you they didn't have their best stuff. Control was all over the place. But Elliott still had that changeup. Every time he had to make a pitch, he went straight for that changeup every single time, and it kept those hitters off balance, and they could not figure it out. He ends up with, the 5 walks there is what's concerning after the 3 or 4 in the opening weekend. But then the second weekend, he doesn't have any, kind of felt like he corrected it, kind of went back a little bit with those walks. That's one thing you're not going to be able to do, but I'm sure he's going to figure that out. Still ends up punching out 7, only giving up 1 hit. Just really grinded through it there on Friday. I think 89 pitches to get through those 5 innings as well. So they talked about wanting to extend him out a little bit, which is what you want to do, get closer to SEC play. Third start of the year, probably top that 90 pitch mark, I would imagine, this Friday night. And then kind of with Maddox, it was the same thing, control all over the place. But he still had that big sinker, though, the one that he was going to go to, the sinker, the cutter. He has 2 different kinds of fastballs, and then he'll just run the 4-seamer up on you, just give you something else to look at. He was really good again, and again, he gets through 5 innings, even though he walked 4, only 2 hits, no runs. So your top 2 guys come through with 10 innings pitched, no runs, only 3 hits, and hey, baby, glad you're back. And just did a really good job keeping them off the scoreboard, giving Ole Miss a chance to put up runs and win these games.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely real. I only saw one really good swing by Wright State the whole weekend, and that was that 3-run bomb off of Mason Nichols.
Yeah. That was on Sunday, and the thing is, you look at Mason's stats, right, and you think, well, he probably threw better than anybody all weekend with his 10 strikeouts through 4 innings. He really, really had it working. He looked incredible on Sunday. But again, it only takes 1 pitch, and you had 2 guys on. He made 1 mistake and left it up a little bit, and he was able to crush that one. But look, if you get an effort like that on Sundays in the SEC, you're going to win a lot of Sunday games because a lot of teams don't have that third starter. That's one thing that makes this pitching staff so deep is you've got 3 starters with Elliott and Maddox and Nichols that have done this before, and they're all very, very talented in get outs. And look, one thing I was really impressed about, there were more guys stepping up out of the bullpen this weekend, Steven. K. Townsend on Friday, I was super impressed with. I don't know if that was a splitter he was throwing. I couldn't tell, but it had some really late bite to it when it got to the plate. It just fell off the table, it looked like, but it was 87, 88 miles an hour. They couldn't figure it out. When they were able to make contact, that's when he was reaching back for the 93, 94, 95 mile an hour 4-seam fastball. So he's got that in his back pocket. That splitter was really good for Kate Townsend. Really want to see him get more opportunities. Thought Patrick Galley was good again on Friday. That's another guy from a stuff standpoint that can really, really run it up and be a real weapon out of this bullpen if he can harness the control. Looked like he did that a little bit, did walk 1. Just some more guys real quick, though. Mason Morris has been unbelievable out of the bullpen for us this year. The Tupelo native pitched the last 2 Fridays, relieving Elliott. He comes in on Sunday this time after Mason Nichols, and then he goes 3 innings, 4 more strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits allowed. Braden Jones was incredible again, 1 strikeout and an inning work. Just a lot of guys here. Obviously, Connor Spencer closes that out on Sunday with the perfect ninth inning with a couple strikeouts. But look, I mean, we've got guys out of this bullpen. I know I talked with you about it that I thought maybe the best case scenario for this team was Mason Nichols getting to the bullpen and finding somebody else on Sunday. I'm starting to think maybe we got enough guys down there to where that's not necessary anymore.
Yeah, we'll see. And like I said, we need to wait and see SEC play and what it's going to look like then. But non-conference wise, we definitely have enough pitching at this moment.
Yeah.
I mean, basically Ole Miss is outperformed every other pitching staff. And Ole Miss realistically is one bad inning away from potentially being undefeated. I mean, that Texas game got out of hand. That fourth inning was seven or eight runs. If you don't do that, it's a ball game. Yeah.
And then you've got a couple more guys. Sam Paculian pitched this weekend, looked really good. He's got really good stuff. Didn't even see Walker Hooks, the true freshman that's been so good the first couple of weekends too. Didn't see him this past weekend either.
I bet you he was starting tonight or tomorrow.
That was my guess. My guess too. They were saving him for a midweek. Which, look, I'm all for that. I want to see that dude in a starting role, see what he can do. But in the long haul for this year, he's going to be a bullpen piece for us though. But either way, he's got an incredible arm. He's been really good so far this year. If that's a guy you didn't see, maybe look for him on Wednesday potentially.
Ole Miss moved to number 17 this week in the D1 baseball poll. It's nice to have Ole Miss back in that familiar territory where they normally were before the last 2 years. This is a baseball team that honestly looks like a very competent baseball team. You can tell they're extremely well coached. They're hitting the ball really hard and they're pitching the heck out of it. It's at the point Arkansas struggled over the weekend with Charlotte. Seemingly every game they struggled. There's no reason to expect even Arkansas at number 3 in the country that Ole Miss can't jump up and get them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with it being in Oxford too. That's the big thing. I was actually going through our schedule a little bit this year, and there's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC. They're all going to be brutal. A ton of really good teams. I think 12 of the 16 teams are ranked in the top 25 in this week's D1 poll. All 5 of Ole Miss's home series are against ranked opponents. All right. Out of the 5 road series we have are the other 4 non-ranked opponents in the D1 poll, with Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Bless their hearts. I just really hate that for them, that they're really struggling here and drops out of top 25. But of the 5 road series, 4 of them are the 4 teams that aren't ranked in the top 25. And then we get all of the top teams: Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Auburn getting into the top 25 this week as well. There's no such thing as an easy SEC schedule, but this one kind of plays out pretty well for Ole Miss. If you can get 2 against Arkansas to open the year, then you travel to Columbia, South Carolina, or Missouri after that. And I feel like that's where you need to go sweep. It's hard to sweep on the road in this conference, but Missouri's barely an SEC team at this point, the way they handle baseball. If you're able to start out 5-1 before Florida comes into town, you're really cooking with something then. It can really set yourself up for success in conference play as you move forward.
Oh, the last weekend of non-conference baseball, a midweek clash with the Murray State Racers. We will be back with Derek Vandygriff to tell you all about it. All right, we are back. Big weekend against Jack State, not Jackson State, Jacksonville State. In this weekend, I think they're 10-2. We talked to Dids off the air about that. Murray State is a Wednesday game. The Southeast Louisiana game tomorrow night got canceled because of the fear of extreme weather, which is probably good, Dids, because historically over the last couple of years, if something bad was going to happen in the non-con, it was going to happen to Sela.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's you're not going to hear anybody talk about it, but this is kind of like canceling the Arkansas State game back in 2022. But that Arkansas State game was at the end of the year. All this one was going to do is end up killing your RPI if you played it anyway. And that doesn't seem to be the case with Murray State. They're one of the final 7 undefeated teams in the entire country right now. Kind of like I told you off air, they're only 7-0. They had an entire 3-game set get scrapped, not this past weekend, but the weekend before against St. Thomas. But they are 7-0. They're undefeated, 1 of 7 in the entire country. Maybe they end up making a run, and this ends up being something that doesn't kill your RPI. But again, with these midweek games, with the overall depth, like we talked about in the last segment of this pitching staff, we should be able to handle the midweek games now. Used to, we'd run out of pitching so fast, or really wouldn't even have anybody to start it to get us off to a good enough start. This seems different this year, though. I think we've got guys that can handle that against a pretty good Murray State team. And then going forward into the weekend against the Jacksonville State team that was projected dead last in Conference USA, and now they're off to a 10-2 start. Haven't played the best competition. They played Alabama once, lost 20-11, I think it was. They play Alabama again here in the midweek leading up to this series as well, though. So this is a team that's really hitting the ball well. One thing about Jacksonville State that really jumped off the page to me, they run a ton. They have 34 stolen bases already this year as a team. When they get on base, they take off. They're not a big power hitting team. Only one guy with at least 3 home runs. I think only 2 or 3 with multiple home runs on the year. But these guys really cause havoc on the base paths. Going to put a lot of pressure on Fowley and Smith with whoever's starting. I'm going to go off a limb, say Fowley starting at least 2 games here. But whoever that is behind the plate, a lot of pressure on them and the pitchers to keep them close, which is something that nobody's really talking about yet, Steven. This pitching staff has been so good with pickoff moves and keeping runners close. We've had, 7 or 8 pickoffs so far at first base this year. A few from Hunter Elliott, but Maddox and Nichols, they both each have one as well. Walker Hooks has one. This one thing that team's done really, really well. So it's not all on the catchers, it's on the pitchers, and the pitchers are doing their job keeping runners close. That's going to be an interesting chess match this weekend, I think.
So who do you think starts that Murray State game?
I think it'll either be McCausland or Hooks. I think you'll see both either way. That's just kind of my thinking behind it, because you never saw either one of them this past weekend. Obviously, both of them pitched in the midweek last week, so maybe that's a strategy for them going forward to kind of rack up wins, having 2 of your better pitchers in the midweek there. As long as other people can step up on the weekend, fill those other 3 days. I'm sure if we ever got into a pickle, then you would have seen Walker Hooks come out. But, I mean, even with the Sunday game that ended up 7-3, it never really felt in doubt, right? You never thought Ole Miss wasn't going to win. So there was really no need in using him if you had a plan in place already for him to pitch in midweek, which would be my assumption.
Yeah, I think I recorded my Locked On Ole Miss podcast in the 6th inning of that game. And part of that was in the 3rd segment talking about an Ole Miss baseball sweep. So that's how confident I felt in that game.
Yeah. It was never really in doubt. I know it got hairy there, get within 4 runs, but overall felt like they did a really good job handling business this weekend. And look, that's what we got to do. We got to go get 3 more. You start stacking these non-conference wins, that's not going to do nothing but help you come tournament time.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Dids, what do you got going on this week on Ole Miss After Dark, buddy?
Yeah, so after y'all get done listening to this, hop over to SEC After Dark. Me and Hitch will have a show out breaking down all of this past weekend's action. Working on another interview for later on in the week as well from SEC Unfiltered. May be able to have that up sometime Thursday night. So kind of got that in the works too. Hoping to record that on Thursday, get that up Thursday night. Just trying to get schedules to match up and all that. That's hard for me over here with kids and work and everything else. It doesn't really match up with everybody else. You're always able to make it work out for me, though, so I do appreciate it.
No problem at all, and thank you for everything you do, and we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, Toddy.
Toddy.